As a non-math teacher, it's interesting to look at some of the different strategies that are used within the math. I learned a lot about some of the strategies that they use, and I can see how that they can be beneficial in the junior classroom, or we need to adapt some of these strategies in the high school as well. So the first one used was the three-part lesson. I've used the three-part lesson quite a bit myself and used it with others. That the three-part lesson is common on the EduGains website through the ministry. I tend to know it as Minds On Action Consolidation. However, I really like how the math people use the first one is activate your prior knowledge, because it really focuses on the students and the purpose of the activity. So when they were activating their prior knowledge, the consultant said that it allowed the students to empower themselves and base it on the learning that they knew, and that they were able to adjust their learning based on what they already knew. So it gave the students some confidence and to build on that. And as well, using that three-part lesson, the teacher could certainly use it as a diagnostic to see what was where each of the students were at, whether she predicted it or not at the time. The next strategy was the use of success criteria. In two of the videos that I watched, the first one, the students, while they were actually doing their problem, the teacher reminded them to look at the success criteria on the board, which I assume was co-created at a previous time and that the students used on a daily basis. So they were very accustomed to looking at the success criteria there. As well, in the same video and in the other one that was there, the teachers noted that the success criteria was there not only for the curriculum and the learning goals, but also for some of the non-math kinds of things like active listening, working in groups, how to communicate with others, and their learning skills. So they had a full knowledge of that, and even during the class, the students referred to that. It was printed up in the wall, and they consistently referred to it. So these were obviously skills that were built on. They were basically anchor charts in the classroom for them. By variation of groupings, what I mean is that the teachers gave the students opportunities to think in different ways. I think one term they used was flexible thinking. Students were encouraged to think of it themselves individually, a little quiet time. And then one of my favorite strategies is think, pair, share. So when you use the think, pair, share, you use some individual thinking. You go with a partner, elbow partner, face partner who you're comfortable with, and then you share some of your ideas. So it automatically you're expanding that. And I've actually heard of the think, pair, share square, which makes it even bigger. So the students feel more comfortable in that classroom culture to share. And they always focused on, I get to learn from that other person. So that was a really good thing. They also did a gallery walk, which was when they were done some of their activities so that they could go around to different students and see what they're doing, so that they're also sharing but connecting with some of those people. One of the videos used laptop groups. So they knew that the purpose was to be at their laptops, but it was a small grouping of 3 or 4 students. And another option of a different grouping was band show, where the kids were doing sharing to the whole class, but once again, there's a variation of some different groupings, some different dynamics, interpersonal connections there where the kids feel comfortable learning. Throughout the videos, descriptive feedback was happening all the time. Um, the students obviously knew their success criteria and they knew how to give descriptive feedback. And I'm sure that was quite the learning process in itself to give descriptive feedback and to know the language of what is useful descriptive feedback and what isn't. So one of the teachers had gone through the fact that good job is a useless piece of descriptive feedback just as much as putting somebody down. So focusing on um, the positive, but also asking questions that enrich the learning. So the kids use different things like conversations, questions to people, sticky notes that they did through the gallery walk. The teacher also used descriptive feedback in talking to the students, and then it also noted that kids could um, accept the feedback. But another thing is I think we always get the idea that we have to accept the feedback and change, but they also had the option to discuss it in their groups and reject the feedback. So it still nonetheless caused further learning whether they rejected it or not. But they were giving the feedback was a learning experience, and accepting it and deciding whether to accept or reject it was a learning experience in it. One of the other things that's important to emphasize as a strategy is the use of math talk, or if we translate it to any course, subject specific talk. It's even within the Kika chart, the knowledge and understanding of the terms, but by using the math talk, it enriches the conversation and they get a further learning. So, whenever we can involve the students in the language of the discipline, um, and use that in their feedback or use that in their conversations, then it's amplifying their learning. So we didn't try and simplify, oversimplify what they were doing, but we've actually elevated the conversation. So if we can use that in any subject discipline, it works as a basis for getting some deeper understanding. Throughout the interactions with the children, we saw in the math through the children in the math classrooms, we also saw a great degree of choice. Um, the groups, the individuals could think of their own answers. They were encouraged to do so, and when they got in their groups, it wasn't whether they that they got the right answer, but they had the choice of solving it and using the strategies that they wanted to, and they could go in any direction that they wanted to. So that really allows the teacher to diagnose and see how they're doing it when they are allowed choice, rather than the teacher saying, here's the step by step process, here's how you'll do it. By allowing the students choice, the teacher is able to see how they do it and maybe what level of sophistication they're at. So they can assess their entry point. And one had noted, similar to our textbook, that it's the zone of proximal development by allowing them the choice in what they want to do. So they could choose the way they wanted to do the problem, which gives them a lot of ownership to what they were doing as well. So there's the opportunity for co-teaching, especially in the junior and primary divisions, even more so in the high school. But I have worked with a group of math teachers in the high school level as well who would switch back and forth classrooms to do some co-teaching. So what that does is it really mirrors the work that the students are able to do when the teachers are able to think through and make conversations for what's going on. Now, in the one video I saw, I thought, how on earth would they be able to get this done? And I think they did it within one day, and it was very well planned. However, um, I think if it happens once in a while, then it's better able to be in the culture of the school. So the co-teaching, they were able to problem solve right there in the time of the class and determine if they needed to readjust. They talked it over with others. So I would say it just mirrors the classroom culture, that co-teaching as a strategy in itself, and then you've got the magnitude of the learning from that. The last strategy I wanted to emphasize is the power of questioning, and it's really all encompassing. It's creating a classroom culture that really envisions the whole learning process. Teachers were asking questions to assess. They were asking questions to get clear understanding on whether it was a question or a statement. It was to further the students along in their learning. It wasn't to get an answer, but to lead to greater understanding. Some of the questions that they might ask is, so you've got this, how do you know? What's your proof? You know it. I really like this question. So you know it, but how can you get others to understand? And by asking these questions, kids were continually having to articulate. The other thing is that during the questioning, the teachers basically use questions to let the students own the classroom and the conversation rather than teachers always bringing it and owning it. And one one keyword that I really thought was good was revoice. Sometimes the teachers might need to revoice, rephrase, whatever, but it's still the kids who are owning it and they direct it and give the ownership there. So that does a lot for the learning process and for the classroom culture. So I think if any of us in whatever grade we are in or whatever subject, if we can use questioning to really create the conversations in the class. So I think questioning and conversations go together because the more communication and conversations you have, the more students are able to learn and the more teachers are able to assess where they're at and where they need to go. One of the things I noticed when I was working with my son this year doing some of his math homework, he's in grade 1, by the way, is that surprisingly I could get the answer. However, in trying to help him through some of the concepts, I was struggling with how to explain it. I know that my mind is, at a different stage than his, but um, I think I really missed all of those opportunities that a lot of these kids are having, and that I um, can't explain where my thought process is. So I'm really applauding that. One of the other things I noted through several of the videos is at no point were the teachers looking for the right or wrong answer. I didn't ever hear right or wrong discussed, but they were really working on building on the strategies to get to showing their work, to their thinking, to solving. Um, so there was never right or wrong discussed, so that it was really working on the strategies more than anything. Um, when seeing some of the co-teaching, I noticed that, wow, that must take a long time. One of the things I've heard is it's slow to the start, but then fast to the end. If the kids really get the learning in the beginning, even though we go so slow, then they'll take on the process for their own learning getting to the end, and then we can work with it. But I did think that it might be a very involved process for co-teaching. Um, Another thing that someone noted is that we have a lot of teachers who are teaching um, in this way, but we've never learned the way themselves, similar to the fact that I'm trying to teach my son how to think out loud, but I don't know how to do it. So my one question is, how do we create this culture when it wasn't part of our own learning? And I'm currently learning how to think out loud more, but I imagine it involves a lot of collaboration with peers and a lot of PD and a lot of time. Finally, I just wanted to highlight another thing is about feedback. Just one of the things that I really liked thinking about is descriptive feedback. One of the comments was that most feedback is geared on what the teacher is looking for to get what he or she wants, rather than feedback being on the students to get them where they need to learn. So it's really giving the weight of the voice to the students and getting that way, rather than the weight of the on the teachers. So it was really a great learning experience to see all these math classrooms. The biggest learning I had is that it's really not about math. This math was the vehicle, the strategies were there, but we've really got to start using these, concentrating on conversation, questioning, feedback for all of our classes. We can just see how we can translate it to the other grades, all elementary and high school, and certainly the other subject areas. So they're just not math strategies, but um, we've all got to learn.